Hi, welcome to this week's Tech Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the Moodle Gradebook today, and specifically some things that I think people don't know, and some new gradebook options that exist for you. So, just so you know, I've replaced all the names in my course so that we're going to be looking at fictitious names, although all the assignment and grades and stuff are actual. So I'm just going to go to grades, and right now, the gradebook that most of us have access to is just called Gradebook. And one of the things I'm going to talk about today is the Moodle Gradebook that you can get access to. If you request access to Moodle Gradebook, this gradebook will go away. The only reason I can see both of them right now is because I'm logged in as an administrator. When I'm logged in as a teacher, I only see one or the other as well. Now, we went to this gradebook back in Moodle 1.9 because of some issues with the Moodle Gradebook. Basically, with the Moodle Gradebook, the way it was in 1.9, the names disappeared as we scrolled. You couldn't scroll up and down. If you scrolled down, the names of the assignments would disappear as well. So there's some reason that we went to this gradebook, which is not the core Moodle Gradebook. It's actually an add-on, and it's an add-on that honestly is broken. And it worked perfectly in 1.9, but in version 3.1, which we're on now, it does not work perfectly, which is why we're going to move back to the default Moodle Gradebook, because the reasons we went here are really gone in that one. It's just a little bit different. So, first of all, what's wrong? Let's talk about some issues that if you stay with this gradebook, you have to be cognizant of. Back in version 1.9, if something was hidden, it didn't count. That is not true anymore. Whether you can see it or not has no bearing on whether it's calculated. So when you hide something, you're just making it so you don't have to look at it. It doesn't mean that it's not calculating into the course total. So that's one of the issues. The other thing is that when we hide things in the gradebook now, some things don't hide. The quiz module in general never hides on this one, so even though we think it's hidden, it's not hidden. And that's created the need to make that new category of zeroed and hidden, whereas before we would just hide. Now we have to zero out the non-active quarters. And so there's that issue. The other issue is the fact that we can't edit the top name because of the way it hides. If I go and turn editing on in the class, that top set of students, I can't ever actually get into there to edit, which is why we had to add that fictitious student, that not real student, so that when we're editing, that gets stuck there. And that's one of the issues with this gradebook, that nobody's maintaining it anymore at Moodle, so I've had to try to do it, and honestly, the amount of time that went into coding this particular gradebook, I don't have to recode it. So that's the current one, and that's the issues we have. No matter which gradebook you decide you use, all the settings are, again, still under setting. If we go into setups, we still have to do the same kind of categories and items that we did before. And then we can set the preferences for either the gradebook or the Moodle Gradebook still right here under setup. Things like how many students do we see the pictures, do we see percentages, do we see just letter grades, those kind of things are all set up here under setup, and then the preferences for whichever gradebook you're going to use. Also, if while we're here, course grade settings, I'm sorry, I meant to say letters. Course letters by default are set up for the high school scale, which is much more confusing than the middle school scale. And to make sure you've got the right scale, you really need to say edit letter grades and make sure the override is unchecked. If you're in the middle school, you would not uncheck it. In the middle school, you'd have it checked, and you would set your A, B, C, D, F range as 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. But if you're not in the middle school, you would have that unchecked so that it uses the Moodle defaults, which are the correct ones for the high school. No one in the high school should have that checked. So if your students are saying, my grade doesn't show up right, when my percent is right, it's because you've got in your letters it overridden with an old scale from when we did the upgrade. So you need to fix that. Okay, so the setup being the same for any grade book, we still have to use our categories. We still have to weigh our categories. I'll spend a second here talking about basically the way I do things now and the way I think that it's easiest to do. First of all, I use a formative, summative category. You've got second quarter up top here. My formative category in my case is 10%, so it's worth 10 points out of 100. And my summative is 90%, so it's worth 9 points. So when you look at mine, 10% comes from formative, 90% comes from summative. I know a lot of teachers use 20/80. It's completely up to you which way you do it. And then the quarter itself should be worth 100. And really what it's doing, it's whatever categories you have in there, it's adding those numbers together and dividing by 100. So if I didn't have this and this, totaling up to 100, it would make things a little bit askew. So you got to make sure that your category totals add up to 100 so that when they divide by 100, you've got the percentage that you want. Now, I've got those things in these categories. You notice I've got nothing hidden here because really what I've gone to is I only put things in there that I've got active. And I've got down here now in my hidden and zeroed section, I've got now a 2 unused, 2 formative, and 2 summative. And basically what I'm doing is when I'm ready to put grades in for this, I move it up to my formative category. It's unhidden when I move it up there, and then I grade it up there. So these other things that maybe are old and I'm not using anymore, or those things that I haven't gotten to yet in the second quarter, I leave down here in this unused section and move it up as I use it. Because then I've got no question. If it's in this hidden and zeroed, in the hidden and zeroed category, if I go down to the bottom down here, hidden and zeroed is worth 0. So in no case does anything inside here ever count and ever average into my grade book. So I've got in my grade book, if I look up here, my main categories, I've got chapter 2, where are we at? Or I'm sorry, second quarter is worth 100 points. Everything else is in the hidden and zero category, so it's zeroed. So it's worth no points, and then the course total is 100. So basically that's saying that all the weight for the course total comes from second quarter. There's nothing else at all that's weighing into my grade. And the reason I feel like I need to point that out again is I think some teachers still haven't made a hidden and zeroed category that's zeroed out in the total. Hidden is counting unless it's zeroed out. Unless it's in something that's worth 0, it is counting. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not averaging in your grade. And that is a difference from Moodle 1.9. So we made that change. We had classes and talked about that. But I think some people still haven't got it because we used 1.9 for so long. You know, we used that for years. We finally made the change. We skipped 12 versions without making an upgrade because I knew people were really used to the ones they were using and didn't, unless there was a reason to change, I didn't want to do that. So, hidden things are calculating unless you have it in a zeroed out category. And I'm going to show you why I put those unused things here into a folder in the hidden and zeroed. Okay, so in my regular gradebook, the one we're used to, if this is hidden, I'm going to show and re-hide everything here just for the process of resetting those flags to make sure that I've got everything hidden there. So I have that, I show, and then I hide the whole thing. Now theoretically, all these things are hidden. But again, quizzes, whether they're hidden or not, still show up. So I'm going to go back to that grade book that we've been using. I'll turn editing off here. We don't need to have that open. And I'm going to scroll down here, and you can see that something is amiss. My course total should be right here, and it's over here. And that's because these things here that are out in the end don't belong. They're hidden items. Chapter 5, I'm in chapter 2, or I'm in chapter 4. And that's another reason that this grade book has caused a lot of confusion for people, because if one thing shifts off, now everything's under the wrong thing. And on the Moodle gradebook, that does not happen at all. That's not a factor. That's not a problem. which is why we're going to move to it. Why are we doing now? Because I don't want to do it to anybody in the middle of the year, but I'm giving the option to switch to it anytime you want to. It's a really, really easy, it's one flag I do, and all of a sudden that goes away and that shows up in your gradebook. So how do I solve this? Well, we talked about this last year. The easiest way, if I were to go to turn editing on right now, and I can't edit categories ever, and if I was to slide down to the end down there, we'd immediately see that this goes over here, right? Because I can't edit that, I can't edit this, and that belongs over there. So what's messed up? I don't know. There's no way to easily know here. So I don't actually ever enter grades here, ever. Because number one, when I enter grades, I'm only doing one assignment at a time. I don't know anybody that enters a whole bunch of assignments at a time. Normally we have a stack of this project. I just entered all the project grades for the project my class is working on. And when I do it, I go and I enter that one thing. And that's what single view is for. And I would recommend, no matter what, make your life easy, enter grades through single view. So when I go to single view, basically it lets me pick either a single grade item or a single user. And the only reason I would ever use single user is if I want to check on how a student's doing on everything. Grade item. So I'm going to do the grade item. I'm going to go to the project that we're doing right now, which is in order of how it's showing in the gradebook. It's not alphanumeric in any way. This is the way things are in my Moodle gradebook right now, the order they're in, and the one that they're doing right now is the motherboard research project. So if I pick that one, then what I've got is I've got all their names, and when I go to grade this, I can only grade this item. There's nothing else, there's no shifting or anything. Now I graded this already in the assignment, which is why it's grayed out. Because when you grade here, it's just like grading in the main grade book. You're overriding the assignment grade with the grade here, okay? So I don't have the ability to do that. I can't go in here and grade because I've already graded in the assignment. If I want to override that, whether it's a quiz that auto-grades, because they'd all be graded out in an auto-graded quiz, or any other item that I graded in the assignment, I can override the grade by just clicking the override right here on the side. So if I want to override this grade, I just click override. Now you see it ungrade out. I can say, nope, that's a 88%. And then when I hit save down here, the bottom right, you can see that save. Then all of a sudden that is going to reset. That student's grades get recalculated then, and I'm back at the same place I was before. I can unoverride as soon as I uncheck that. I'll just hit none here, make it easy on myself, and I hit save. That student's grade is going to go right back to what it was. So overriding grades are only overridden while that override flag is set. So at any time, I could go and say, hey, you have a 0 on this project right now. You didn't get the quiz done. I can go and give them a 0. They can take the quiz. The quiz grade will still be saved, but it's not going to go in the grade book until you override it, okay? This is also the only place that it's easy to exclude items and go and say, you know what, this project, he was absent for most of the time, so I'm going to go ahead and exclude that. Oh, the save's up here in the top right too. I'm going to go ahead and exclude that for him, and now that item will not count for or against him no matter what his grade is in there. So if you've got a student that wasn't there for a section, he took the quiz when it was assigned and he got a 10% on it, I can go in here and later and exclude it, and then it won't be in his grade. So I think the single item view is a great place to enter grades so that you don't ever have to worry about making that mistake of which one did I just enter grades for. It's also where I can select a user if I want to. If I select a user and scroll down, now I can see every single thing in the grade book for that user, and it's going all the way through all the hidden and zeroed ones. There's nothing hidden in here. So it's going through all of them, which is also why I always put the one that's active first, so as I know, hey, these are the things that we're actively doing right now. You can see what category they're in, what the grade range is, and I can grade those for that person here if I want to. So if I'm just trying to catch up one student, I can do that with user, and that's all under this single view And like I said, I can go and do this as well and just grade single items. Now, I usually grade in the assignment itself, which is why these are always grayed out for me. Occasionally, I'll enter the grades here. Occasionally. I know some teachers who always like to enter them at the gradebook. Their preference is to do it from here. It's easier to find. I just click on it and enter the grades, and that's fine too. I would just recommend using the single view for that. Now also, this doesn't say user report anymore. It now says student report. I just changed the name on that if that confused anyone at all. And when you go down there, it shows the report for the user. And this is the only place hidden really counts, because Moodle's set up to hide from students, not hide from teachers. So they can't see the hidden stuff, and the hidden grades don't count in here. So that's why sometimes teachers and students see two different grades, because you hid stuff so it doesn't calculate in their view, but it's still calculated in the main view. So they're going to see their score here and see a different score on the front of the Moodle when they sign in, because that's your grade that they see. And this, they go down here and say, hey, I go to my gradebook and it says I got a 96%, and yet when I come to the front of Moodle it says I've got an 88. And you go, well, that doesn't make any sense. It does if you remember that when they look, hidden items don't count, but when you look, hidden items do count. Okay? And the grade that's on the front of Moodle when they sign in is the grade that you've given them. Okay? So it has nothing to do with this hidden grade, which is why it's confusing. Okay? And that's why this one just, I think it's time for it to go. It was great during 1.9, and honestly, I wish I would have just killed it when we moved over, but I never even looked at the new one to see what changes were made. So let's go look at the Moodle Gradebook and see what the differences are on the Moodle Gradebook. I'm going to turn editing off. One of the things I loved about this one is the color coding. So I obviously saw every time it switched to category, the color up top would change. So I knew that I had switched categories. But that does not exist in the default Moodle Gradebook. If you remember the gradebook from before we went to the one we were just looking at, what the default Moodle Gradebook was a long time ago, there were some problems with the gradebook. One of the problems with the gradebook that we had before, that as we scrolled left, the names disappeared. And that's why we went to the new one, because you couldn't even tell who you were grading. However, they fixed that. So as I scroll left, the names do not disappear. The other thing was that as I scroll down, the assignments disappeared. I don't have enough students in this class unless I zoom way out. The assignments no longer disappear. They stay up top now. So I've always got the student's name and I've always got the assignment on the sheet, and that did not exist in Moodle prior to 3.0. So a lot of those things, the reason we went to the other one, were fixed. So let's look at this one. Now, there's some different things. I'm going to zoom back out so it's easier to see. There are a few things that are different in this one. Let's just go in a little bit. Right there. Okay. So everything else is the same. Now, one thing it does let me do, it lets me pick a student by just saying their first name, last name. Honestly, that just wastes space up top. I don't know why you would do that. That I'd love to code out, and maybe I will when I get a chance, because I'm sure that's something we can just skip. But other than that, the names show up the same. Occasionally I have teachers who email me, and this is the same with this gradebook and the other one, say, my student names are out of order. Well, it's because you click something. If I click the word last name, they're all in order by their last name. But look now, because they were already, now I got to click it again to get in first last name. So those are just simple ordering things right there. These buttons, if I can hover it over it, if I click on that, I go to all the grades for that student. It's basically their report card that they can see. And if I click on this one, it goes to that single, I should go down here. If it goes to that single view for that student, which is the same thing we just looked at, single view, if I click on that, now I'm at the single view for this student with all the items that are in the gradebook there. That's what those buttons do. Now, if I turn editing on, again, I can scroll up and down as I scroll left and right. These never, ever, ever are not in the column together. So I don't ever have that it's shifted, this isn't lined up, and you just saw in my other grade book, all these are over one and something is messed up there. I don't know what it is. But in this case, that doesn't happen. So I've got right now my grades are all lined up perfectly down through there, just the way they should be. Oh, we get some other things that we didn't have before. We also get averages for all these assignments. And if I'm on a group, let's grab a group real fast. I'm going to grab 2018, which is all my student. But now we can see, well, it's the same because it's all my students with a grade. But now you can see a group average and the overall average. So if you want to say, hey, I wonder if second block is doing as good as third block on my test. So I'm going to go down here to the summative category, and I'm going to say that overall, summatively, where am I at? Overall, summatively, my students have a 97.13, but this block has a 96.6. They've only had one test. I know this block is below average. Yeah, those are really close. I realize that that's not a big enough difference to matter, probably. But you get the impression. You can see how different blocks are doing versus each other, and you can see your overall average for every assignment, not something we had the ability to do at all with the other version of the gradebook. So the reason I set this up, really, Janet Ott was like, I really like to see the averages. I'd like to know how the different groups are doing. Is there some way you can get me the old gradebook? And so I figured out a way to make a flag and have it go, this one goes away, this one comes back, or vice versa. So the other thing is the assignments all show up. These are all hyperlinks. If I want to go straight to the assignment, I click on it, I go straight to the assignment, and I can look at the grades right there. If I want to go to all the specific grades for the assignment, I just clicked on that and I went straight to that by hitting that button. If I want to order them by that particular grade, let me go back to 2018. If I want to do it just for that grade and see how my students are doing, who's doing the best, I can order it there and see what students did the whole assignment. This is the lesson. What did better on the whole assignment. So I can now order by the totals on those assignments as well. And when I turn editing on, I get both the assignment and a feedback spot if I wanted to. And yes, it's very small. I don't know if you could type all your feedback in there. That would be pretty hard to do. You can also edit the grade right there. When you click on that, you're doing it for that grade. So I could exclude it, I could hide it, I could do those things. But now you're doing it for this user, not for the whole thing, which there's no other way to do it in Moodle. So if Peony Burrows wasn't here for this, or you want to exclude them for it, you could do it there. You can hide it completely from the gradebook so that if they pulled it up for their parents, they didn't even see it. You could do that as well. So there's some capabilities with this one that we don't have with the other one. You don't have to use those things, but they exist there. So I can put the grades in there just like I do with the other one, but now the grades scroll with me and see the names stopped up top there. Let me take away all my bookmarks too hard, make it a little cleaner for you. And you can see as I scroll left and right, the names stay there too. So there's some reasons that this one's nice. There's some things I would like to fix on it as well. Those being these columns are, let me turn editing off. These columns are really wide. There's a lot of white space. You don't see as many things. I still think single view is the way to enter grades because if I'm going to put the pre-project skirmish in or the motherboard rubric grade in, it would be easier for me to add it. Now, I add it here anyway, right? I go to view all submissions and I add it in the assignment itself. But if I was going to add it at the gradebook, I'd rather do it under the single view. And I can do that, again, really easily by this little pencil right there. If I click on that, under that item, I go right there to the single view, and I see the grades right there for that particular item to be able to add the grades. So there's some reasons I like this one better, and that's the main thing, is that nothing ever gets screwed up. Now, nothing's ever hidden either. So right now, my gradebook looks clean because I don't have any hidden things in this part. If they were, then, in fact, let's move some hidden items up in there. They would be grayed out, but they would still be visible. So I'm going to move something up there from this summative one, this chapter 4 blog post, which is a formative one. I'm going to add it down to the end down here, and I'm going to make sure that it's hidden as well. It is. Okay, so it's grayed out. It's hidden, but I'm still going to see it. When I go to the Moodle Gradebook and I look at my formative items, as I scroll down here, it's still there. Okay, so that was one of the things that we went to the other gradebook for, so the hidden items were just hidden from us and everybody else. But because they count now, and I can't make them not count because the way Moodle rewrote the code, I think it'd be better for us to see it. Because if all of a sudden we're like, why is this grade off? Oh, I graded that and I hit it. Now the grade is askew. So those things count. Moodle is set by default to if something is not graded, it will not calculate it as a 0, it just won't calculate. So right now, since there's no grades in there and it's hidden, it's not doing anything to my grade anyway. The other thing is the way these categories expand and contract. Now it says hidden and zeroed right here, and it looks like I go down here to the end of the quarter, there's my summative, there's my quarter grade, there's my course total grade. Look, they match, that's the way they should, right? And that's one of the checks we have to do before we upload grades every time, is make sure the current quarter matches the course total, because this course total is what uploads to Moodle. I mean to Dazzle. So when we upload at the end of the quarter, this goes up, because that's the only thing that's the same in every single course, is the total. This gets uploaded, so before we upload, we have to make sure, hey, these things all match, and they do. So, what about those hidden and zero things? They're all there in this gradebook. I said everything hidden shows, but because I put them all in their own category and collapsed them, see that little plus? If I hit plus, now all of them expand, and now look how big. See, I don't know if you can tell. We get down to here to hidden and zeroed, and now all those other categories are there that I've hidden all of the way down here to the course total. And that's the other reason that putting all your stuff into one, all the unused things, into one category, and that I'm using hidden and zero, doesn't really matter what you call it, but now it lets me take and collapse that whole thing down. Oh, I didn't collapse it yet. That was it. It expands twice before collapsing. It doesn't expand a little and then expand a lot, because now all the things inside it are expanded. And now I hit it one more time, and now you can see it went back to all just that one thing there. So that's why it's best to do that. And you can see at the bottom easily with this that it's worth 0. If I didn't have that hidden in 0 worth 0, if I were to go to this category and edit the category, and let me go to setup, I'm going to undo what I did. If I didn't have it zeroed out, I'm going to go ahead and oh, that's not the one I have to do on top, sorry. If I didn't have it zeroed out, and here's the category, I'm going to go ahead and edit the settings, make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm going to hit expand all in the top right corner. The maximum grade is 0, but by default, every single category, the maximum grade is 100 when you make it. So you can make one called hidden and zeroed, but if you don't change the maximum grade to 0, all you did was put all your other grades to average together. So if we look at this now, my students now really, if I go to view, and Moodle Gradebook again, if I go down here, I'm going to look at my second quarter total. My second quarter total and my course total no longer match anymore.
High school office, please. Mr. Carr to the high school office, please.
And the reason they don't match is because now they've got the second quarter total hidden and zeroed. It's hidden. It's collapsed. I can't see anything in there. But because I didn't make it really zeroed, it's taking this 100 points and this 100 points and add them together, dividing by 100 and getting that. So this student who's got a 99 now shows a 96 on the course page because that hidden thing is averaged in there. So it's really, really paramount. And you can see the average of my students at the quarter, for first quarter, because that's what's in hidden and zero right now, was 88.3%. But right now in the second quarter, they're doing better. It's 96.8%. But it's averaging them all together, so my average overall is 91.1. So you've got to make sure you remember that hidden doesn't mean it doesn't count. The only way to make it not count is to zero out the category that it's in. So I'm going to go back to setup. So if I have any students look, they're going to wonder what the heck just happened. So again, I make a category. Doesn't matter what you call it. The only reason I name it hidden and zeroed because I'm going to hide it, and I zeroed out. I'm going to edit settings, and then again, I expand all so I can see maximum grade. I want that to be 0, so it's not worth anything. And there we go. And now my grades are back to the way they were before. So that's this the real default Moodle Gradebook, and that's why I changed the name to Moodle Gradebook. It's all actually called the Grader Report. I don't know why they called it that. Is now an option for everybody. Okay, so because I've got those things all in one category, all I'm showing the categories expand on the way down. So I've got my computer hardware, and I've got second quarter. Inside second quarter is both to formative, and as I scroll over, you'll see that becomes to summative. That's where I wish it changed colors. I really do like that about the other one. And then that is equal to hidden and zeroed, but hidden and zeroed is 0, so it doesn't affect any of my grades whatsoever. So that's the gradebook. You can see there's a bunch of things that these are going to count. They are open, but they're not graded yet because they're intervention activities the students can do optionally after they've taken the test, which they haven't taken the test yet, so they don't even see those things, but they are there in Moodle. The other thing is when I turn editing on and I go to do grades, I can add them here. The one thing is now that I add them here, I don't have to worry about it getting off column. It's just I don't know that that's better than just going to the single view and picking the assignment you're trying to grade. Anyway, if you're a person who likes to enter grades here, and I know there's a lot of people that do because math teachers are a good example. They're doing assignments way more often than I am. They're doing daily homework assignments, and they want to just go here and enter the grades and go next. And if you're in single view, let's go to this one. If I'm here, I can go next and back through all the assignments. So I can say, okay, I got that one entered. I go here, and I can pick my class I'm entering grade for. So I can go there, and I can just keep nexting through those assignments and entering grades as I go. And you can see the assignments changing up top, which one I'm actually grading. I know they all look similar because they were all worth 10 points. But that's the way that works. The other things that we did change, I changed the word outcome to indicator since that's our verbiage in there as well. And I don't think I changed anything else while I was messing with it today. So those are the changes in the gradebook, and I really wanted to do a class on that just so people knew what that Moodle Gradebook was. No one's going to see it. If you didn't watch this video, you wouldn't know it was there. If you don't know it was there, you don't know to ask. So that's kind of a catch-22, obviously. But if you want to, if you watch this and you're like, nah, you know what, I'm going to stick with the one. I know the limitations of the gradebook that we've got now. I know that they get messed up from time to time and the columns aren't straight, and I'm okay with that because I grade through single view anyway. That's fine. But if you're grading through single view, then why do you care? Why wouldn't you go to that end? Your choice there. So that's one of the options that I want to throw up. Again, we are going to go to this one next year. This one's going to go away entirely. It's not even going to be installed next year because of the fact that people aren't seeing things that are counting in there. And I'd really like to do a gradual rollover back to the default Moodle Gradebook, which is fully vetted by the Moodle staff and developers all over the world. It's just that it was clunky before in version 1.9. So that is it. That's all I got for today for our Moodle Gradebook changes and the things that, or the options that you have going forward with the Moodle Gradebook. And that's it. Thanks for coming.